Thanks, Sarah. I've got this insane urge, so I'm just going to do it anyway to say hello to the lone man on camera, Steve. Welcome everybody. So those of you that lots of you will know, the man that likes to call him Big Steve, call himself Big Steve. So Steve is actually Vice President of the Chamber and is a really great supporter of the Chamber and a big helper on our board. So thanks to Steve and to all of you for coming along to our Leading Ladies session in February. I hope you were as good to yourselves on Valentine's Day as everybody else was. I know that we had a really nice afternoon tea. I organised that, and then I had the most fab weekend off, which is quite nice. But we're going to be hearing some of the questions I am going to have for some of our speakers about how people, how are you managing? How are you kind of balancing what's going on at the moment? It's actually really nice and sunny here, and it's amazing. I've realised how much the outdoors and the light impacts how I feel. And in the depths of January, when we were in another lockdown and everybody was finding it really hard, I think because you were getting up in the dark and finishing work in the dark, and I couldn't get out and have a walk, and I was kind of glued to a screen. It was definitely, I think, one of the hardest months I think I've gone through, and I think I was meeting lots of people and talking to lots of people who were feeling exactly the same. So I'm really looking forward to today. Our Leading Ladies sessions are always super interesting, and I'm definitely not setting anybody up for a fail, because I know that our three ladies that are going to join us today have all got different stories, and we're just going to have a bit of a chat. First of all, we are going to hear from Caroline. Caroline's going to talk about her own journey, and I'm really interested to kind of catch up on what Caroline's been doing, because she's been incredibly busy while we've kind of been working our way through the last 11 months. Her new, it's not so new business really, and I'm stealing all Caroline's thunder, but it's just grown and adapted in a way that I think many of you will have had to do with your businesses and your business life. I know lots of you are on the session, and I can see everybody is constantly reinventing what they do at such a punishing rate. Whether that's in your own role or whether it's your business and what you need to do with your products and reaching your customers. So it's really nice to actually just spend an hour or so listening to other people, being inspired about bits of their journey. You always take away something, even if it's how they choose to kind of end their day or start their day or manage their time or manage their personal and their work balance. So yeah, I think that's really enough for me. Just to say, I will come back on at the end and talk to you a little bit about some other events that we've got coming up. We've got a brilliant event next week on personal resilience. So if you haven't already signed up for that, I'll be giving you a bit more information on that at the end. And for those of you that are watching this on our YouTube channel, because we've recorded it and we've put it out, then you're not going to be disappointed, and I'm glad that you've taken the time to come back on and view one of our recorded events. So I'm just going to introduce Caroline now to you. Caroline McKenna is well known to a lot of you on the call, and has actually really helped us get lots of bums on seats for this session today. So a massive thank you from us to Caroline for doing that and for coming on and telling our story. Caroline is founder and CEO of Social Good Connect, and is going to tell us an awful lot more about that and what has happened with her since her journey from working in London and launching a social enterprise during a global pandemic. So Caroline, over to you. Once I can hear you, I'll mute and get out of your way.
Great, thanks Alison, thanks Sarah. Thanks for having me, and honestly I really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy weeks and on-screen lives to come and listen to me and some others in my story really. In fact, look, I should say thank you to you, because today I have a Zoom top on, I have a full face of makeup, and this doesn't happen at this time of the morning. However, what I want to ask you right now is how many of you have Zoom tops on and really embarrassing bottoms? And if I show you mine, will you show me yours? Is the question. Okay, so Zoom top, bottoms. I have a pair of bottoms on that are really embarrassing, but this is life now, isn't it? So I'd like to, at some point throughout the call, see your bottoms, and let's see how embarrassing they are. Look, the upheaval of the last 12 months has really taught me the value of just simple humanity and wholeheartedness. Just simple acts of kindness really just lifts us as people. And the lack of hugs and connection and human connection over the last 12 months means all the more when someone does that small act of kindness, really. And none more than last week in the snow. So my husband Colin was looking out the window and saw a car horizontal on our street, got his coat on and his boots on, and off he ran to help a guy get his car down the street. And the week before, he'd left his car door wide open, and Colin had gone round and shut the door and made sure it was okay and told him this. And about 2 hours later, the guy came to the door and handed in a bottle of wine. And there was a little note on it, and it said, "Thank you so much for helping me push my car out this morning. As a result of you doing that, I was able to pick my son up on time, and it made such a huge difference." And I just thought, you know, you didn't need to do that, but what a lovely, lovely thing to do. And when I was watching all the kind of the Black Lives Matter, you know, unfold, and I saw this photo. You've probably seen this one. An opposing member of the Black Lives Matter group picked up someone who was injured and took them to safety. And, you know, the need for these two qualities of wholeheartedness and humanity reappears time and time again for me. I suppose as a leader, trying to do my best to nurture a team remotely, as a keen connector for social good through our employee volunteering platform, and as a volunteer in the community myself, and more recently as a homeschooling, kill me now, mother, you know, while running a business from the same house. It's really tough, and Alison, you alluded to it there, but isolation is a real threat for so many people in so many ways. And I've been really concerned about friends and family, as they have about me over the last 12 months at various points. So taking time to do something for someone expecting nothing in return is one of the unsung answers to surviving the uncertainty of where we are, I believe. So I'm the Chief Exec of Social Good Connect. We're a for impact social enterprise organisation. We offer employee-led volunteering, and we do this in a new and easy way through our unique Search and Match digital platform that connects employers and their employees with physical or virtual volunteering opportunities. I'm a mum of 2 girls, Georgia and Amelie. Georgia's 9, Georgia's not 9, Amelie's 9, and Georgia's 20. And wife to Colin, and we've got Bailey the Bolognese dog, who at 11 is still acting like a teenager. And I believe I'm where I should be in terms of my career. I've kind of found, and I'm the wrong side of 45, but I've found my purpose finally, my sense of self, and it all feels congruent, I suppose. And that is where I am now, feels authentic and aligned with my purpose to use my energies to inspire people to positively impact the lives of others. So that's where I am now, but what led me here? Someone asked me the other day, you know, you're just so lucky. How did you get to be so lucky? And I don't know if you've ever had this question. I'm not very good, as those of you that know me, at hiding facial expressions. But you know, there isn't such thing as luck. It's not luck. Luck, I suppose, is winning the lottery, although I'm sure somebody will tell me that there's lots of algorithms and things you can do to give yourself a better chance. But you know, this stuff is absolutely about hard work, determination, resilience, really not knowing what you're doing, but pretending that you do half the time. Fighting every day, week and month to make your idea succeed. With some people fighting against you, some are desperate for you not to succeed. And luckily the people that I've surrounded myself with are. And I don't know if you've been in a situation where, I shouldn't speak bad of my mum, but she constantly asks me when I'm going to get a real job. I'm like, Mum, I'm 47. I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. But you know, right now I'm in the thick of this. every month trying to ensure that the brilliant people that work in the team get paid. Every day trying to get our mission out there, trying to find like-minded people in organisations who put people and purpose at the heart of everything they do, just trying to move the needle a fraction each day, each week and each month. And sometimes when it gets really stressful, and you get in that state of I suppose, why am I doing this? You just need to remind yourself of purpose, a reason for being, the positive contribution that we're bringing to the world. Our purpose is to create a world where people care and are inspired to make a positive social impact. And some businesses don't have a purpose beyond making money, and I believe that the pandemic is changing that outlook. We've seen some absolutely amazing businesses come to us and say, we know we should do more, we just don't know how, can you help? I think it's supercharged the fact that many people understand the criticality of businesses' place in supporting and solving, society's challenges, really. But for many, it's challenging and evolving journey. And I think once you nail your purpose, you'll really start to fly. Your people will be more engaged and loyal. Your staff recruitment and retention will improve. Your customers will know that they're buying from an organisation who cares, and your bottom line will improve over time. And it just feels like you're doing the right thing. And never underestimate the power of a sprinkle of positive feedback. I talked to the team about everyone's got a GOB file, we call it, which is glimpses of brilliance file. And so every time they get positive feedback, put it in a folder. And then, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Betty said to me, on a Wednesday we do our team talk. And usually I come and try to do, motivational, inspirational, come on team, let's do this. And 2 Wednesdays ago, I said to them, I have nothing for you today. I have nothing to give by way of motivation and inspiration. I feel like shit. I've struggled to get out of my bed. I'm absolutely knackered and I don't know why. I'm definitely drinking too much wine. I'm definitely eating the wrong foods. And this wonderful January goal plan of 10,000 steps a day has gone right out the window. And Betty said to me, Caroline, have you looked at your GOB file recently? And I said, no, I haven't. And it's just these little notes that you get from people that say, thanks, you're doing a great job, or, whatever it might be. So I did, and that made me feel a bit better. But one of the charities that we worked with last week emailed and said, I'm delighted to let you know that Nicola McCafferty of Thornton's Law, who's one of our employee members, has completed the piece of work that we submitted as a volunteering opportunity quite a while ago. But as a result of Nicola donating her time and expertise, we're now in a position to make East Haven a better place to live and visit. And, when you get feedback like that, you realise that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. Anyway, I digress. Right, let me go back a good few years. I loved school until I started hanging out with the crowd that didn't love school. And I failed most of my exams because, well, it was pretty cool to fail your exams at that time. I found boys, I went on dates, boys, smoking and alcohol, let's just call it that. I disappointed my parents enormously. I told them I was still at school, but I was wandering the streets, playing hooky and just enjoying being a rebel, really. So I wasn't a great teenager. And I never knew what I wanted to be. In those days, the teachers gave you 3 choices: a police officer, a teacher, or an air hostess. And that was it. That was the 3 jobs you could do in your life. There wasn't much else in those days. Even university wasn't a huge thing. It was only the sort of top 1% of people in class that went to university. But Mum found out that I was playing hooky, and age 16, she dragged me through the streets to every office in town until she landed me a job as a dental nurse. I earned, I think it was £19 a week, and she took £5 to teach me a lesson. And the dental nurse job I absolutely loved. I met one of my closest friends, Jan, who's still one of my best friends to this day. And I learned about people and customer service and caring for others and working as part of a team. So I just absolutely loved being a dental nurse. But you know, as I kind of, a few years later, I wanted to develop a career. So I applied for a job in insurance and started as a personal lines customer service advisor on 6,995 per year. I always remember that figure. And I had more money then than I do now, believe you me. It was here that I spent the majority of my career, and I developed as a person. I grew my career there over 18 years. I was running big teams, setting up new units from scratch, managing millions pounds of budget. I learned about managing budgets, forecasting, leadership styles, marketing, sales. But I was pretty miserable in the end. After 18 years in a large corporate, as many have done and said before me, you realise you're just a number, that you're a commodity, and many of my friends were made redundant, and the process was diabolical. You know, there was no humanity in it. There was no, it was a letter posted to you. You know, there was no conversation. There was no support. That kind of robotic mentality, the lack of personal touch. You can still deliver bad news, right? But the other person, put the other person first all the time. And I'd experienced real gender challenges. So insurance is a male-dominated industry. And in one interview, I was told that I had the job, but I wasn't that bright, but I had great legs. Can you imagine? Can you imagine now going for an interview and that was the feedback that you got? Or can you imagine being a man, you know, and told that you had nice legs? You know, I just don't think it happened in those days. And actually, on this point, while I'm on this point, more recently in a podcast interview, a male colleague and I were being interviewed on our thoughts on the pandemic. He was asked about the economic outlook and challenges faced, and I was asked how I was coping with the hairdressers being shut. So, you know, these are the things that I love to call out, but I like to do it appropriately and not make the other person feel bad. But this gender bias, it still happens, and I'm really keen where possible to make sure that we eradicate some of that. Anyway, I decided to take voluntary redundancy. Husband was absolutely freaking out. What does this mean for us? It basically means we're going to be skint, honey. I studied as a business and life coach and started working, you know, with small startup businesses and charities. I can see a few of you on here, actually. Wendy Callender's on here. Lovely to see you, Wendy. From a lovely, lovely charity in Dundee. And, you know, I landed a consultancy role and then ended up being the Chief Executive Officer of the Dundee International Women's Centre. Met some amazing women from all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, cultures, many of whom had been through a really difficult time. So it's the first time I got first-hand understanding of what it means to be a refugee, what it means for someone who's experienced female genital mutilation, what it means for someone who's experienced domestic abuse. The centre was an absolute lifeline for so many women, and it was a great place where there was amazing food. In fact, I put on 2.5 stone when I did that job because the food was just to die for. It was amazing. But it was there that I learned about the value of volunteers. There were around 60 to 70 volunteers who were just a lifeline for the organisation. There was high churn though, you know, people coming and going, and searching and recruiting for volunteers was just time consuming, but not always fruitful. So we kind of recruited, we had to recruit a full-time volunteer coordinator to research, find, manage. And in addition, I was trying to engage the business community. And you know, this sort of charity of the year approach, which I'm not a fan of really. I think it's probably had its time now. I'm not sure it lends itself to a long-term partnership approach. It's almost like, okay, you're in this year, but you're out the next, and you need to start that process again. But actually, when we did get volunteers, and particularly employee volunteers, the level of commitment and skill really, really supported what we were doing, both in terms of our strategy. You know, we had people looking at social media, we had people looking at how we could transform the centre. There was lots of great people came on board. But after the Women's Centre, I started, I set up Social Good HQ, it was called, consulting for businesses who wanted to create their own social good CSR type strategy. And the idea of Social Good Connect was born. So how could we make it easy for employers to support their employees, use their skills for good, and help charities to find committed, skilled volunteers to help their beneficiaries enhance their cause, give them the resources that, they don't have the funds to pay for. So in 2019, we started our journey of feasibility and focus groups and which legal structure to set up, which we've been around the houses with. And in late 2019, we designed the technology and the user experience. And in January, February, we were looking for startup funding. I'd been looking for funding for over a year. There was no money to get this off the ground. It was knockback after knockback after no. We don't believe in this idea. We don't think this has got legs. No one will buy it. Businesses are not going to pay you and for them to use their own resource. Why don't we just give the money to charity? There was so much, there was so many no's and so many knockbacks and so many times where I wanted to give up. And in fact, the week before lockdown, I decided that the end of March last year was the deadline and I was about to give up on the idea. And you know that thing you always read when it's just about when you're about to give up that something happens. Well, all I needed was a bloody global pandemic, virtual pub with a few really great colleagues who really renewed my confidence and belief in what we were trying to do. So Andy Lothian, Craig Nichol and Danny Campbell basically got drunk on gin one night and they said, Caroline, we absolutely love what you're trying to do. And now more than ever, we've now got furloughed teams that are sitting around. We want them to still be connected to us. They're asking what we can do to help the community. So let's get Social Good Connect off the ground. And, that power, never underestimate the power of someone saying they believe in you, because they didn't know that I was about to give up. I've since told them I was, but they didn't know at that time that I was about to throw in the towel and, as my mum would say, get a proper job. So just one person telling you that they believe in you, quite literally, is the most amazing thing. So that's what we did. We accelerated the launch in 6 weeks. I recruited all the team, actually, bar one, remotely. So that was interesting. I bet there was lots of Zoom tops and dodgy bottoms going on those interviews that you couldn't see. But it was just a really great experience, because of course you've got to start to build this culture. How do you build a culture with a new company, and how do you start to build a culture with people you've never met face to face? But we did, and we have, and we're doing it. And it's not easy sometimes, but I think the people that you've got around you are your greatest asset. They're your only asset, actually, particularly in a service business. They're the only thing that you have that so look after them is my biggest piece of advice, really. I've had some lows though. I mean, I talked to you about, the days where I really struggled. I mean, when everyone was furloughed on that first lockdown, I was working from 6 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week. A lot of the team were working crazy hours. It was just manic to try and get this thing live and launched and get charities signed up, get businesses signed up. And in fact, I think 2 weeks before we were due to launch, we had no charities sign up, but we had businesses. And we're like, well, it's a bit chicken and egg, right? You need charities with volunteering opportunities and people who want to do it, but we've only got one side of that. So what the hell are we going to do? So, there was lots of real things that we needed to really think about and consider. I've had people tell me that my idea was really shit and it would never ever work. And that's tough. That's really hard when you're hearing from someone that you admire, someone that you believe to be really successful, to tell you your idea is never going to take off. Businesses don't care about community. They don't care. They just care about the PR, I think, was some of the language. That was really tough. I've had women bosses who felt that to compete with their male counterparts, they had to be really aggressive and vicious and demeaning in that corporate environment. And I worked in a well-known Scottish bank, and the presenteeism, the long hours for someone else's gain, the politics, I suppose the lack of meaning, just yearning to go beyond the look at my new handbag chat, just the energy drain, the uncertainty about what I was doing, really. It was quite tough those times. I used to have to get up and drive through to Edinburgh at 5 in the morning. Amelie would have been 3 months at the time. I just didn't see her for about 6 months, and it was torture. It was really, really hard. And you know what? I'd love to be here now saying to you, this is one of these stories that has been really hard and we've made it. We're here. We're exactly where we want to be. But it's not, because that's not life. I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you everything's great. We've absolutely triumphed over our challenges, that we are on top of the world, and that we're flying. But it's not true. We've had to work incredibly hard to get businesses to understand what we're doing. We've got our outreach, our communication, and our messages to connect with like-minded businesses who care about people in community is really hard. You know, finding people who believe what we believe, finding people who want to support you, you know, constantly having to worry about cash flow, constantly having to find other ways to get working capital, to get working capital to see us through, because we didn't really get much of that. We also made a decision that we weren't going to charge businesses from May. We launched 21st of May last year until October. Who thought that was a good idea, right? I did. So we didn't charge any businesses. So where did we think the income was going to come from? So I had to spend so much time trying to get, you know, philanthropic individuals to donate. We had to get, we applied for, I think there was 24 different grants, all of which we got a no on. We did get support of a digital development boost loan, I think it was called, to do the technology. So that was great, and that's what really kicked us off. But you know, it's really hard. It's really hard to get working capital when you do not have proof of concept. So you know, when we started charging businesses in October, really we've only 4 or 5 months into that journey, and even now we've just reviewed our pricing model. So we did our pricing model based on the number of employees, and of course what happens is people say, well, not everyone's going to take this up. So although I've got 100 employees in that band, can I have that one there that's much less? Because that's, and it's like, yeah, I didn't think of that when we did our pricing, really. So, you know, that's one of the biggest learnings for me is, you know, as much as people will tell you to do your business plans, do all your prep, get your feasibility and your focus groups right, seriously, just go do something. The best advice I've ever been given is go and get real customers. Just go and get them, and then take that feedback and iterate and change. You know, we're changing our pricing, we're changing our communications, we're changing our outreach emails, we're changing the deck that we talk to businesses about as part of our discovery calls, because we've got real feedback from real customers. So, you know, of course you need to start somewhere, but it's almost like just go out and try for 3 to 6 months. And we were actually told in a lot of the grant applications that you know, if we got 3 months under our belt, proof of concept, then we'll give you money, no problem. Guess what? Went back to them and they still said, no, we need a year now. We don't need 3 months, we need a year now. So, you know, some of that stuff's really, really hard. But the good stuff. So met absolutely amazing people. It's always about the people, wonderful people, a lot of whom are on this call. Vivian, I think Vivian's on the call. Vivian Buchan, who was the, sorry if I get this wrong, Vivian, I think she was the financial director for Insights. And I met Vivian on a call and we just hit it off. And so every Tuesday from last March, I spent stomping around the streets of my house on the phone to Vivian going, and another thing, and another thing. And she's like, Caroline, come on, you've got this, you know, and she just gave me lots of great support and great advice, and she expected absolutely nothing in return. And we finally met face to face. I think it was in whatever the hotel's called now, Landmark Hilton, and caught up in that in between lockdown phase, you know. But just having great people around you. The team that I work with absolutely amaze me every day. You know, and the worst piece of advice is telling, you know, someone said to me, you have to tell the team what to do. I'm like, no, I don't, because actually most of them are much smarter than me. They've got much better ideas than me. And actually it's about creating an environment in which they can flourish and we can all make mistakes and you know, take accountability for that, learn from it, and just move on. So, you know, I think, you know, I feel like my network's grown because I've not been afraid to ask. You know, I think I've got a sticky note here on my screen saying, remember to ask, because sometimes, I don't know why, it's the thought of the response in your head is worse than the actual response, because the worst thing someone's going to say is no. And 9 times out of 10, people actually want to help you. So if you're looking for something and you're trying to do something, just ask. So we're about to launch a podcast series, and Betty and I have been looking at, you know, leaders who are, mind your P's it's called, the Purposeful Leaders Guide, but leaders who are really great with people and really got clarity on their purpose, and how did they do that, and how's their business grown as a result of doing that. So one of the people that I'm really desperate to interview is Peter Vardy. And I thought, well, how am I going to get him? I sat for 2 weeks, honestly, in my head thinking, how am I going to get this guy to, oh, he's just going to say, no, I'm not going to do it. Right. So that's it. It's off the list. And then next week I thought, oh, anyway, I thought, right, look at the post-it note, just ask. So I messaged him on LinkedIn, connected with him. He'd just done a video out to his staff, and great video. And I just said, I love your video. Absolutely brilliant. Really resonated. Hope you're well. And that was it. 2 seconds later, got a response, which I think the team laughed at me and said, it's probably his PA. It's not actually him. But he came back and said, you know, thanks so much for reaching out. Really great to hear from you. I've just had a look at your website. Really love what you're doing. And then I've waited a couple of weeks, and yesterday I went to him and said, you know, I'd love to do a podcast interview with you because they do some amazing stuff with their people. And we're getting a date in the diary. So what does it tell you? Like, ask. So, you know, just go do it. Just go ask. And, you know, I think I did a conscious leadership course with Entrepreneurial Scotland, which was great. Really, really, really fantastic. It was during lockdown, actually. I think it was last July for 4 weeks. And one of the things they talked about there is that everyone is someone's precious child. Treat your team the way you'd want your child to be treated at work. And, you know, that really resonated with me, is how would I want Georgia, my 20-year-old daughter who's about to go into the world of work, how would I want her to be treated in work? And making sure that, you know, we've got all the great communication tools and things in place that help that, really. So, you know, I think, you know, engaging the team around alignment and engagement. So alignment's about setting clear direction for me. What's our North Star? What's our purpose? Where are we trying to get to? If everyone's clear on where we're trying to get to and where we're headed, then I think that really works. So we created this North Star that we want to achieve 500 million of social impact by 2025. I have no clue how we're going to do that, by the way, none. But the great thing about that is it changes your mindset, because the first figure that we put on this last year was 1 million. So we want to get £1 million of social impact by 2025. And then by really working it up to 500 million, it changes your mindset. It makes you think much bigger. And do I think it's achievable? Probably not. But if it means that we get to 100 million and not 1 million, then we'll be way over where we were last year. So it's that mindset thing about the big hairy goals. And then as a team, we co-created what the critical success factors. So we did our breakout sessions on, you know, what's the critical success factors that will help us achieve our kind of North Star, really. And, you know, Craig Nichol, who runs Thornton's, talked to me about this. He set a goal of 20 million revenue by 2020. So it's 2020 by 2020, I think it was. And he had absolutely no clue how he was going to achieve it. Everyone told him it wasn't possible. But the mindset needed to achieve something that big is what flipped it around. And I think they're now, I think they've just recorded, you know, 28 million or something like that. So it's just a mindset thing. And engagement for me is about communicating to build trust. So there's a correlation between trust and engagement. I got asked last week, how do you know that your team are working? How do you trust them? If you've never met them and they're all working remotely, how do you know? And I said, well, you know, the best way to trust someone is to trust them, right? There's nothing else for it, you know, and you know, we're all in it together. And we have regular communications. We do twice weekly check-ins. So we do a Monday, are we on track? What's the plan for the week? We do a Wednesday, less informal. How are we? I think last week we all talked about what we're grateful for. And every second Thursday we do Think Tank Thursday, which is a topic that we want to learn about. So currently we're doing LinkedIn. How can we learn about how to use LinkedIn better? We've discovered if you can voice note on LinkedIn now to people, which is great. So we're starting to think about those things. We look at our quarterly results and the annual strategic picture review. So our end of financial year is March, but that's really about just setting direction. And daily, I ask myself every day, am I doing the things as a leader to accomplish what I need to? And how do I make sure I'm focusing on the things and only the things that I can do to drive the organisation forward? We call it the ABCDs. So the A's are those things that only you can do. And the B's are, you know, the things that you could do, but actually with support, someone else can do it. And the C's are the things that you shouldn't really be doing and you should be delegating. So we all kind of give ourselves a little bit of a sense check on that. So I think in closing, really, you know, our employers, employees, charities, and the team believe that our work matters. We're making a difference. We're creating an easy way for people to feel more engaged to their employer, to do more in their community, and doing good for someone is motivating. Zig Ziglar quoted, "People often tell me that motivation doesn't last. And I tell them that washing doesn't either. And that's why I recommend it daily." I just love that. I think it's brilliant. It's like, you know, that daily sprinkle of motivation. And you know, I think that, you know, why do people who volunteer come back again and again? Why is it always the same people that come back again and again? It's because of the feeling that they get, knowing that when they do something for someone expecting nothing in return, that kind of, you know, we talk about the antidote to stress and anxiety at work being wholeheartedness, doing something for someone else, expecting nothing in return, is what sees you through the week. All of our team get 2 hours a week to volunteer. We try and role model it. And one of the team is befriending an elderly gentleman. And she said that it is so uplifting and it just sees her through the week. It's just absolutely brilliant. Best thing to do. So, yeah, I think the last point really is about going all in. So I spent a good couple of years saying, I'm not sure I've done enough focus groups. I'm not sure I've done enough feasibility. I'm not sure we've done enough checking if this idea is going to work. I was kind of half in, I would call it. And I think, you know, the best advice looking back on that is just go all in. You know, don't be scared to commit if you believe in something. You know, that whole what if it fails, what if I fail, you know, that's my biggest fear. But if you don't go all in, you'll never know. And there's a quote that I found that it was last year actually, just before we decided to go launch this, just at that point where I thought, I need to give up, this is enough. And it's until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. But the moment that one definitely commits oneself, a whole stream of events come from the decision, raising in one's favour all manner of unforeseen incidents and material assistance, which no man or woman could have dreamt could come his way. And so I think that's where I feel so glad that we did go all in. You know, who knows where it's going to go, but all you can do is prepare to be lucky. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Caroline. You know, when you're doing that whole, where's the mute button? try and not to speak before you find the mute button. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I've got so many notes and so many kind of thoughts kicking around. Just remind you all in the audience that if you'd like to put a question in the chat, once I introduce the rest of the panel, if you want to put your hand up and come in and ask your question, then that's perfectly fine too. If you'd rather just put it in the chat and we can pick it up, then that's not a problem. So first of all, if I can ask Kelly, just because I can see you at the top of the screen, I'm doing this in no sense of any kind of order, but if I could ask Kelly to unmute herself. Kelly's going to tell you all about herself, and then I'll introduce Hayley and we'll just have a bit of a chat. So Kelly.
I'm Kelly. I have a couple of different businesses. I don't really know what there is to say. I guess I'm what they call a serial entrepreneur. I like opening businesses. It's kind of what I enjoy doing. I work as a consultant, so I get to open other people's businesses too, which is fab, and I love that. I like, what do I like? Alison knows me better than I know myself, I think. Basically, I like creating new things and growing them, and then it's a bit like when they get to adulthood, I get quite bored. We've just taken a new opportunity, I guess it is, to open another business. We've recently opened a Selkie in Dundee. I kind of mucked about with myself, never really knew who I was till I was about 38, 39. And now I'm just one of those people that's all in. I have a poem on my study wall. It's a speech. It's called Daring Greatly. It's The Man in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt. And my thing is, I'd rather be in the boxing ring, getting a bloody nose and being in the fight than sitting on the sidelines watching. And I think anybody that knows me knows that's just kind of my whole nature. It's like all in, got a bloody nose, pick myself back up and then go back again. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Our next speaker might not even speak, she might sing, because there's a lot of singing comes out of the Weecook kitchen. Hayley, over to you. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hiya. Yeah, well, actually, I'm probably one of the only Welsh people who's not renowned for her singing, to be fair. So I leave that to the staff. Yeah, so I've got the Weecook kitchen and the Weecook pies, and I don't know how to describe myself. I've kind of forgotten a little bit what it's like to be just a normal plans and hopes and dreams. Everything we had for last year's all changed, but we're still here. I'm just, probably one of those little stubborn, stick in the mud kind of business women. I just don't give up. So I've got my mind set on something, and I'm really lucky that I've got a team of individuals working with me to help us just battle through. So do you know what? It's been such a strange 12 months, and it's really weird seeing things on Facebook and stuff now, and on social media. Everyone's like getting their plans in for Mother's Day, and Mother's Day actually sticks in my mind as a bit of a scar, because that's the kind of pinpoint last year where in hospitality, we were told that's it. You're not going to open for Mother's Day. Mother's Day being the biggest day, bigger than Christmas, because people obviously love their mums more than Jesus, and that was the end of that, and it was all changed from there. So it's like we're counting down to that now. It's almost like an anniversary of hell, but it hasn't. We're still here, and looking at all the other business women, and you're hearing all the positive stories. It's really inspiring, and great just to kind of learn from that and take from that, and again, other business women locally that we've been collaborating with. It's we're all in it together. So yeah, so who knows what'll happen now. I've seen the Daily Mail's little headline this morning, and I'm looking forward to next Tuesday or not, finding out what the roadmap's going to be for coming out of lockdown. But yeah, in the meantime, we'll just carry on. It's a battle every single day or every single week. If it's not the pandemic, it's the snow. Yeah. So yeah, ask me a question and I'll give you an honest answer.
Now you're setting yourselves up. I love it. Thanks so much, Hayley and Kelly. I'm just going to finish, pick up on something that Caroline said towards the end, which actually answered one of my questions anyway. So Caroline was talking about getting advice. So for Hayley and then for Kelly, what would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever had? Hayley, do you want to come in first?
Sure, I'm thinking. Do you know what the best advice I had? I sat in Glasgow next to the Lord Provost's kind of like one of these speakers that stands up and does it. He was a business speaker. And I love the fact that he was so relaxed and chilled about everything he'd done. And I asked him when he came and sat back down, and I was like, so what's the secret of your success? And he said, find something that makes you happy. If you do something you're happy, you're more likely to be successful in it. And at the time I was working with Barclays Bank, actually. I was a relationship manager with the bank. It was a really boring job. And again, like Caroline was saying, we work for the big corporate companies, and it's just a game. You're part of a cog in the machine. And, you know, when you start thinking about that, I realized very quickly that I did that with my staff. I encouraged them to seek what made them happy, and they all developed and moved on. And it got to a point after a few years, like, right, I really need to do what makes me happy. And I know what makes me happy. It's been hospitality, it always has been. And that's what I did. And since then, I've not looked back. I don't go home and whinge about work. You know, the first thing, I don't go, oh my day. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's true. And that's the best advice. And that's the advice that I give to anybody, including my staff. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kelly.
Sorry. I think the best advice I've been ever given, it's kind of part of what Caroline said. I've been really lucky to be given lots of advice over the year, but one of my clients used to be Arnold Clark, and I remember once saying to him, what made you scale up? How did you manage that? Like, it was when I still ran a cleaning company, and he was one of my clients. And he said, oh, just don't bother with all the facts and figures, and don't bother with all the planning, just set a course and do it. And I was like, is that not quite scary? And he was like, yeah, but what's the worst that's going to happen? And I just thought, and the worst for me had already happened. I'd had a stroke, I'd nearly lost my baby, I'd lost everything. And I thought, well, actually, if the worst has already happened, what can happen? And I remember his wife's face was more like, really, is that the greatest advice going, sort of thing? And then he just sort of looked at me and he was like, because the worst's already happened. And I thought, and it was that whole, the worst thing that could have happened to somebody like him was just not doing it. And I think that for me, that kind of stuck in my head, that if you have all these dreams and all these plans and you don't do them because someone might have an opinion on that, or someone might feel like that's not your role or not your place. And it was that whole, it sounds really naff, I'm really sorry, it was like stepping into who you are. And it made me realise, like, I don't want to be bothered what other people think of me. I never bothered all through school or uni, so why was I going to get to 30 odd and suddenly be bothered, if that makes sense?
It sure does, yeah. Caroline, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think what Kelly's saying is, it is that scary bit, isn't it? Well, I think when you go to some of the organisations that give you advice, everything has to be done. You have to do it this way, and you have to create a 40-page business plan. No, you don't really. We've got a 1-page business plan now that's just brilliant. Because it's really clear. It's got absolute clarity, and I know that the reason they do that is so that you've thought everything through. Of course it is. Have you thought about all these aspects? It's getting you to consider it all. But a bit like Kelly, I think hindsight's a great thing. But just go do it. Just crack on, really.
But I think some of the things that happen in business are never on your business plan. So I do business plans for lots of businesses. It's part of my role as a consultant. And things that happen, it is never covered in the business plan. If the things that set you back were in the business plan, you'd have a plan for it. The things that set you back, that you sort of sit there and go, oh no, like COVID wasn't in Hayley's business plan. It wasn't, and nobody saw that coming. And I think they're the things that make you, the things that you just never expected.
Now you've stolen the other question I had, and so I'm going to ask it anyway, because I'm happy to kind of hear. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. So my question is going to be: do you plan it or do you wing it? And how does that work out for you? So Caroline, I know you've already talked about this a bit, but I'm just interested in kind of hearing how you cope with kind of both sides of planning it and winging it from a business and from a personal point of view.
Yeah, I'm personal life's a total shambles, actually, Alison. I don't really plan very much there. I suppose I'm always the one that plans the girls' nights out. That's about as much planning as I do there in personal life. But I think in business, yeah, of course you do. We have got, you know, we have got a one-page business plan. We do have critical success factors. We do measure some critical things like how many businesses have we signed up, how many charities have we got on board, how many volunteering opportunities. So, you know, I think there's key metrics that you measure, and the reason you do that is to show progress. And, you know, it's to show progress, or it's to show why there's a gap. So if there's a glaring gap, and it's also about, you know, what do we need to change? What do we need to be brilliant at to make this better? So if there's a problem in a particular area, one of our biggest challenges is getting employees engaged. So the employer will sign up, but getting the whole team engaged is really tough. It's really hard, but that's what makes the whole cog work. So, you know, there's lots of, you know, Fiona does a brilliant job supporting the employees to come on board. But I think there's something about measuring key metrics and then challenging yourselves and asking the right questions. It's back to that question communication thing with the team is, what do we need to do differently, even better if, you know.
Great, thank you. Kelly, what about you?
My planning's not great. I've got 8 kids to prove it. I'm not very good at that, am I? Jokes aside. I plan in Sunday dinner every single week. Everybody had better be home for Sunday dinner or there might be trouble. Our foster son's a policeman and he's like, I can't get an early shift every Sunday. And I'm like, why not? In terms of business, we took on a coffee shop in the middle of the pandemic. So I don't think I'm the best planner in the world. The night before my wedding, I called my husband and said, you've got 5 years. I was 18 and a bit bullshit. You've got 5 years, and if after 5 years I'm bored, that's us done, okay? Because I couldn't face the fact that I might be married for a long time. 25 years later, we're still here, so I never even planned for that. I think, like, it sounds really daft, but I think the universe is just going to look after you. I used to plan everything. I used to be like, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to hit, this is where we need to be. And that didn't really work out. And now I just go with my gut. I never used to go with my gut. You know, when you meet someone and your gut's like, this isn't right. I used to be like, that's not logical, that's not right. And now I go with my gut. So I think it was September, October, I convinced my husband to go and look at a dishwasher that was for sale in a coffee shop. Telling him that we do meal prep for clients and stuff in our housekeeping business for that. And for what I thought was the price of the dishwasher, we managed to acquire the coffee shop. And my husband was like, there's going to be another lockdown. What are you going to do? What if? And I was like, I think if you love what you're doing and you're having a great laugh, what's the worst that could happen? Like I said, if you fall and get a bloody nose, you're going to get back up. And we opened with my husband going, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're doing this. And it's been great. I've had the best 5-6 months going because we had no expectations. We had no plan. We just had a plan of the Selkie is like an extension of my dining room. If you come to my house, I'll feed you. If you come to the Selkie, I'll feed you, but I will give you a bill. If you come to my own house, I won't give you a bill. I'm not that bad. But for me, it's just been like a great experience because I had no plans and no expectations. I just had this thing of, I always wanted to go back to my own place. I've opened lots of other people's places. And there's always that thing as a consultant when you put in a general manager and you walk away and it's no longer your baby. And now it was like, no, actually, I kind of want my own thing. So no, planning's not my thing. I have targets. I wake up every morning. I know what I want to achieve. I have targets in terms of financial targets. I have everything like that. It's always in the back of my head, but I don't have a plan of what if. And I think, especially in hospitality at the moment, a plan isn't going to do me any good. I'm at the mercy of whatever gets announced on a Tuesday. In terms of cleaning, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do this quarter, and we got closed down on Christmas Eve. So that, do you know, I think that's one thing that I've learned probably the past 3 years, and certainly this year's proven to me, you have to bend with the wind, otherwise you're going to break. So yeah.
That's a really nice way of putting it, isn't it? Hayley, what about you?
I think for us, it's similar to Kelly, you know, we've been in hospitality, but the things you can't plan for, I think what we've learned is how that we adapt to them. You know, when the constant thing is that things are constantly changing, you need to somehow become the master of the chaos. I think that, you know, for us particularly, it's that ability to be able to improvise, adapt and overcome. You know, it's almost like, I was in the military years ago, and I think I learned a lot there in terms of like self-discipline about, you know, you can go forward, you can advance, but sometimes you have to retreat to fight another day. And very quickly, it's like, you know, you can take time out to make small time plans, to regroup, to assess a situation, because it's such a reactive environment for anyone, for any business, for any lifestyle, for any employee in an organization. You can't overplan it. So you've got to prioritize your time. Do you want to waste time planning and wishing your life away, when the reality is you've got no control over the universe, and you have to take what comes it? Find happiness in things that make you happy, spread joy, be kind, all these kind of things that make us human. And one of the things that I love about hospitality, and I think the reason that I do it and encourage our staff to take pride in what they do, is that our job is to make people happy. And at the moment, the way we make people happy is through this window, this here, because they can't physically come to us. So we have to bring happiness to them. So the best planning I can do is think, what would make people happy now? What's missing in their lives? Holidays. So we inspire, our food is, you know, inspired by holidays. And, you know, it's like Kelly, we've got to hit targets. We have to pay the bills. I've got to pay the wages. And, you know, we're losing out probably on 2/3 of our revenue at the moment, probably more, you know, without kind of going into figures wise, there's so much we're missing out on. We won the shop as well in the Wellgate. And I was determined for Christmas, we must make a go of it just to see how it is, so that'll enable me to plan a bit better. And we will be ready when the time opens, you know, because all the time, my brain doesn't switch off. I'm working on probably about 3-4 hours sleep at the moment, which maybe it's from drinking too much Brewdog beers or too much wine on my days off, but I don't sleep like a normal person right now. It's this lockdown thing, but I think it's my brain constantly working away like a supercomputer, trying to work out how are we getting through it. So I don't want to waste any more time in my day planning that, because what will happen and what will be. And I want to be there, you know, ready physically, mentally, when the time comes to open up and welcome the world. And if I've got the strength, I will encourage and support other people to do the same, my staff, colleagues, other businesses, because we're in it together, you know, and it's a big economy, it's a big wide world. And if we all have our little bit in that world, that's what, you know, I want to focus on here, now, the present, and then the future we can work together on.
Brilliant. So many questions now. Anybody that's got any questions, please put your hand up or drop them in the chat. Hayley, I want to come back to the young people and your commitment to apprenticeships, but that's not my real question right this minute. My real question is, how do you recharge your work batteries, ladies? So Hayley, do you want to go first? And then I'll go reverse order, Kelly, and then Caroline.
I like going down the beach. You know, I grew up by the seaside in Wales, so going down to Montefieth Beach, when that tide's right out and you go right to the end and scream at the world, it's an amazing thing. You just, you know, I need to get outside, get that vitamin D. And like I think you said, Alison, earlier, when it's dark and wintry and it's all doom and gloom, and it is, but you need to take a break and just look around you at what we've got. We've got our health, we've got family if you've got them, or you've got something, you've got some means of income, you know, chipping away there. So having that kind of time to switch off, walk the dog, put beer in your pocket and go and stand on the beach, you know, love it. Yeah, that's what I do. And normally I'd go out for meals with my wife and that kind of thing, but there's nowhere to go for meals. So, you know, we'll sit at home and have like pretendy Italian nights, or, you know, we'll move the table next to the window and watch the train going by and pretend we're in Paris with a coffee. It's just crazy. And I'm addicted to scratch cards, absolutely addicted to them. I'll have to seek help after lockdown for that.
Brilliant. Kelly, what about you?
I wild swim, so I like to be in the water. I think when you're that cold, I think the water was about 2 degrees yesterday, you feel alive. That sounds crazy, but I've always done it, and now everybody's doing it, and it's great because I never used to have anybody there, but now there's loads of people. I always make time for my husband. He's absolutely the most amazing person I know. And even if that's just like a glass of gin and a bit of cheese at night and a blether, I think that stops you being in work mode. But I don't know when I'm not in work mode because I don't like sleeping. I hate sleeping. I think it's boring. That you've got to pretend to be asleep to sleep. I don't get it. I don't like it. I've never slept for more than like 3 or 4 hours. 5 of my children are autistic, so I think that their broken sleep has always been reflective in me, if you get what I mean. But I think that makes me more productive. I was doing a mindfulness thing with Jamie McBurty, and he was like, you have to be part of the 5 a.m. club. And I stayed up, because normally I go to bed, like you'll know, Alison, like 2, 3 in the morning. And I stayed up to 5 o'clock in the morning just to check in. And everybody's like, I feel so alive. And I was like, I just want to go to the beach. No, madness. But anyway, I don't think I'm ever out of work mode, but I think that's just, I like that. I'm not unwell with it. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel unhappy. I had a tumour on my pituitary glands. I've got a thing called Cushing's, and they take it out by putting a hook up your nose and pulling it down. And I wanted to stay awake during it because I wanted to go to work afterwards. And my husband was like, are you for real? And I was like, I don't know what else to do with myself. I love being a mum. I think that's my guilty pleasure, if you like, is although I've got hospitality businesses, I don't work Sundays because that's like mummy day, and I make a roast dinner and I do my ironing, and I have dreams about being like a stay-at-home mum, and then I realise that nobody needs that in their life because I'd be dementing everyone. So yeah.
Caroline.
Oh my God, Kelly. I can't even imagine this wild water thing. I saw Amanda says she really wants to do this. I keep seeing videos and thinking, oh God. So I love going to the beach as well. So I, walk to the beach all the time with the dog. It's great. But this is really uninspiring. But I basically, the way that I switch off is by watching utter trash on Netflix. So, well, the one I watched recently, It's a Sin, wasn't utter trash, but I was ugly crying at It's a Sin, if you've seen that. But it's that sort of thing. That's the way I switch off. I always cook on a Sunday, so I love doing a Sunday roast with wine, because you can't cook without wine on a Sunday. And, just simple things, really. I think now, even more so, it's the simple things. Mum and Dad have both had their vaccine, which really lifted me this week, because I feel like we're moving forward, we're making progress. I don't feel like we went back into lockdown this time. I feel like we went into lockdown, but it was phase 6 or 7 or whatever it is, where we're just making a bit of progress. So I don't watch the news at all. I stopped watching it. It's just too depressing, really. So wine and food, basically. Wine, food and Netflix, I think's the summary.
Nothing wrong with any of the things that I kind of see myself doing, all of the things I think that you ladies have described. Next question, Caroline, how would your friends describe you? What are the words that they would use to describe you?
Oh gosh. What would they? Well, most of them are the ones that say, when are you going to get a proper job? They'd probably describe me as fun, kind, and that's tough. That's a tough question. I'm sure I asked Sarah this, which is nodding. I can see it. I asked Sarah this in her interview. This is a
that's
terrible
where ours
question.
has come from. It's like the evil interview question that Donna and I've been doing this week, and it's fascinating. I'll let you keep thinking, and I'm going to pick on Kelly now.
Noisy, late, and difficult.
There you go. Hayley, what about you?
Slightly podgy, very friendly, and a good laugh.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now back to Hayley, what I was talking about young people, and Caroline's talked a bit about how she engages her team. So I am interested in that, but I know you've got a real passion for young people, and you're mid recruiting for apprentices. So tell us a wee bit more about that, and just, I guess, the ethos of that in your business.
Do you know, it was the apprentice thing came about because it was very difficult to get staff that were not tainted or tarnished with bad habits initially. I was struggling to recruit And the Modern Apprentice Scheme started a few years ago, and I took an apprentice on, and I actually got a lot from it myself in terms of, you know, working with a young person, developing them, and realizing that, you know, not everyone can go down that academic route of university, college, and we're missing out on a massive gap of people with incredible skills and abilities just because they don't do exams or don't, you know, it's not their style of learning. And I found that the apprentices that have taken on and that we've kind of had success with, they've come on and developed, and they've actually enabled me to grow and develop my business as well. So, you know, we have got a mix of you know, older staff, for want of a kind of, you know, oldies like me, and there's Al, and we've had Carol that work with us, but the young apprentices, they bring something fresh because they'll come up with ideas that, you know, they're not preconceived, you know, they'll suggest things, and it's being part of that journey, I actually take great satisfaction from it. And ultimately, I think maybe it's a personal thing. I was unemployed myself when I was 17, 18, when the hotel that I worked in, there was no work, because I think it was one of the first recessions I remember growing up and living through in North Wales. So there's no weddings, there was no tourism. It all gone a bit kind of sad, and being unemployed, it made me feel that, I never want to be in a position where I don't have an income ever again. And that's kind of one of my motivators for being self-employed. And I thought, I don't want young people to feel what I've been through. If there's an opportunity and there's work, then I want to give someone an opportunity. Their age doesn't matter. You know, people that are 16, 17 have shown more maturity than other people that I know, you know, in terms of their commitment and how trustworthy they are, and what you can, you know, task them to do. And it's the kind of loyalty that they show, and how they bring each other on is quite inspiring. So yeah, we are looking again now for 2 apprentices, because the staff that I've had have like developed into other roles. My assistant manager's become our manager, and to see how they've adapted and, you know, the resilience they've shown through lockdown, it's quite incredible. It really is. You have to meet them to see them. You know, when you can come to the restaurants, come and meet the staff. The apprentices are, I don't want to be too loud, they'll be getting a big head because they'll be listening in, but they're brilliant. They really, really are. And I absolutely love them to bits. And sometimes I could throttle them, a bit like Homer with Bart Simpson. You know, I have to remind them I'm not their mum or their teacher. And I set the expectations for them and expect them to take on responsibility. And do you know what? They step up to it, they rise to it, and they do it. You know, and they do it. And they're showing great mental resilience, particularly now. You know, some of them for, you know, 6 months weren't seeing their partners, their girlfriends, their family. They're not seeing their friends, so they come to work, and they're like a bunch of little crazy pirates on this ship. And I actually take joy just kind of working with them and watching them. I look forward to coming in to being with them every day.
That's fab. That's really nice. I'm doing this in order that you're on my screen, ladies. So Kelly, you're now working with your family, aren't you? And your family are kind of a huge part of the Selkie, but it's not the only business you've got. So, you know, how are you finding kind of engaging with your different teams, and you know, you're looking to recruit. So I'm just interested in how all of that is kind of shaping what's happening with your world at the moment.
I keep in touch with my cleaning crew through like weekly sort of team chats. We do team quizzes because they're all on furlough, and it's really quite difficult. A lot of my cleaning team are single parents, and I can't imagine how hard that is, like being isolated as a single person almost. But they have totally got each other's backs. Like, they've got a real camaraderie, and like, my housekeeping team are just brilliant. I'm clearly biased, but I just think they're the nicest group of people. There's none that I wouldn't trust, if that makes sense. Like, and I don't mean just trust as in giving them keys to houses. I mean, they have got at your service at the core of what they do, and they totally love it. But I think the fact that we give duvet days, we pay above the living wage, we do all the things that we're supposed to do, because actually recruitment's really expensive. So it's better to keep good people than to try and cut corners, if that makes sense. They get involved, like the Selkie does a Wednesday night feeding the community thing, and the At Your Service girls come and they'll like help with deliveries and things like that. So it's kind of become a family of businesses. In the Selkie, it's been quite difficult. We've been trying to bring staff in when we've been doing takeaway, just so that they've still got that contact, because none of those staff unfortunately qualified for furlough. And so we're very aware of like our responsibility to them. It's really weird in the kitchen because I work with my son-in-law. Well, he's not even my son-in-law yet, they're getting married next year. I opened Long Park for the Thompson family and Robbie was the chef there. I brought my daughter in to go through the customer journey with them in front of house, and somehow we're now getting married next year. So it's really weird because Hayley will tell you kitchen banter's really quite odd. And sometimes like Valentine's service, our Zippy D went offline, they disappeared for 2 hours, we had no drivers. So we were basically sending staff out with orders because the show must go on. And Robbie just goes quiet when he's stressed, but I talk when I'm stressed, but I talk rubbish. And you've got to remember there's a line because that's still going to be your son-in-law. And my sense of humour is not always, and I can see he's going to say things, it's really odd. And we think it's quite funny because we must be the weirdest mother. So yesterday he said, I was thinking about the wedding and I think actually you should be my best man. And I was like, yes, I can wear a kilt and no makeup. And my daughter and my husband were like, that's too weird. And we were like, oh, okay, fine, you just shut up. So yeah, I just love being around people, as you probably can guess. And I wouldn't employ anyone I didn't like. I used to employ people because logically it made sense. But now I think one of the real privileges of being self-employed is I get to choose who I work with. And the other thing I think I've learned over the years is that when you've developed someone to the stage that they're just simply too brilliant to be around you, you have to really wish them well and nothing but like go for it. Like a lot of the girls that have come to us now have gone to work with Greycoat Lumley because they get an estate house. They're like the estate recruiters and they get to go and be housekeepers in big houses and they get a nice car and a big house. And it's like, it's bittersweet because we've spent years training them, but actually they're at the top of their housekeeping game. And why shouldn't they get a car and a lovely house? And so, yeah, that's something that I've learned. Like, it's like, I don't want you to go, but, and even the original Scarlet girls from like when I had the shop back in the day are still really good friends. And one of them's coming back to take forward our new project. So I think like, you just kind of make it family. Everybody's darling to me. Everybody's like, you know, and I think I probably got a mum demeanour, like my foster son's 31. So I've never really employed anyone older than that. So everyone's like, I think that it is like I am kind of like a work mum in that there's a line and you won't cross that line because then I'll get really annoyed. But if you do, we'll have it out that day and the next day it's done. What happens in service stays in service and that's it.
That's really interesting piece of advice, that line, and then, you know, it's done and it's kind of a fresh slate, isn't it? Caroline, is there anything that you would add to kind of any of that? You talked a lot about how you engage your team anyway.
Yeah, I think just we created this mantra when we were doing this co-creation of our strategy stuff, you know, the sort of 12-month plan, and keep on keeping on. It just reminded me of that. And you know, it was that just keep on keeping on. You know, every time you see that needle moving one step, then that's great. You know, every time we inspire and motivate someone to volunteer, that's amazing. One person can make such a difference in someone's life. And so, you know, it's of course it's about, we want to get volume, we want to, you know, inspire everyone to be doing it, but the realistic thing is it's just one person at a time. So keep on keeping on. And Sarah shared her favourite, I can't remember what it is, but it's she'll put it in the chat, keep on keeping on song. And that's really a good mantra, I think, and just collaboration and values, and, you know, making sure that open and transparent communication, if there are, you know, frustrations or challenges, that it's you know, it's a place where you can talk about them freely.
So I'm going to be kind to you all and not ask the other evil interview question that was, what kind of animal would you be and why? So my question, Caroline, is what's the best idea that you've ever had that just didn't work, and what did you learn?
Gosh, the best idea I ever had was not charging businesses for 6 months. because that felt like the right thing to do in a global pandemic. And what we've learned from that is the value that people place on your service when you offer it for free is very hard to turn around when you start charging. So I think in hindsight, it felt like the right thing to do at the time, but it's quite hard to turn around. And so, you know, of course, and those businesses, you know, right at that early stage wanted to get involved and, you know, wanted to get involved in doing something. And so it just felt like the right thing to do. But it's been a tough one to turn around, really, that, you know, of course we charge for our services in the same way that everyone else does. What we choose to do with our profit is put it back out into the community through our Social Good Foundation. That's our choice to do that. But we have to charge for our services to enable that kind of lovely little circular piece to happen.
Great, thank you. Kelly, what about you?
Come back to me.
Yeah, Hayley, she's throwing a hospital ball at you. Hayley, what's the best idea that you've ever had and it just didn't work?
Well, the best idea that I thought I had to help my business grow was to employ one of my friends to work with me, and then realise how toxic a person my friend was, and that's it. And that's all I'll say about it. You learn these lessons, don't you, the hard way, and you know, yeah. So yeah, best advice as well.
Brilliant. Kelly, there is no escape now, on the spot.
When I was 19, which would have been a long time ago now, I decided, being pregnant with my second child in 2 years, that I was going to open an online shop, because this internet thing was new, and I was going to sell all the baby stuff and everything else online. And I even managed somehow to get mamas and papas to sign up to me being their exclusive vendor online, because everyone thought I was just like mad. This was never going to work. And I went to the Business Gateway in Arbroath and I said, I've got this great idea. This is what I'm going to do, because nobody wants to be wandering around the shops and this internet thing's going to take off. And they laughed at me and said, that's never going to work. No one is ever going to buy stuff off the internet. And I kind of came away a little bit like, and I went to see my father-in-law, and my father-in-law was a policeman with a pension, dead nice guy, but really risk averse. And he was like, what a load of nonsense. You'd be better off just getting a job in the pub at night if you need extra money. And I was like, I don't want extra money. Like, I want to do this. And from one reason and another, and the hosting costs were madness then, like absolutely crazy. I basically, after about 10 months of, you know, like loads and loads of jotters full, I gave up. I just thought, I'm never going to get this going. I'm never going to make this work. But what I was kind of wise to do is I kept all the exclusivity contracts. And when I think it was Babies R Us came along, some of the bigger companies had to come back to me to ask if they could then, and we did a bit of a deal, and we managed to buy our little council house in Letham because we'd done a few wee deals and I'd kept the exclusive rights. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not entirely stupid, am I? Like, I remembered I kept some of it, but I wish I had just kept fighting and maybe asked people for funding and maybe looked at other ways, if you get what I mean. But I didn't. I got 3 no's and I just kind of went, oh, right, okay. And that's something like my daughter's just graduated in law, and that's something that she is brilliant at doing. She does not take no. Like, I always say to her, like, if the first answer's no, just get the next answer. If it's no, just keep going. If you think it's right. And she's totally like taken that to the core. And like, I watched Sophie's LinkedIn and I'm like, I want to be like Sophie when I grow up. And then I remember that she's the daughter and I'm the mum. But I think that's the only thing that I've taken away from it, that if I should never have taken no, and if the one thing I can give my daughter is the gift of like tenacity, just keep going, then at least I've not completely mucked up.
Love it. Thank you so much. Last question is a bit of a curveball, and if you genuinely haven't got anything that you want to kind of talk about, then that's cool. But I'm I'm wrestling at the moment with, you know, the government are working their way through a pandemic, and they are definitely taking their time to be measured in how, you know, how we get back to business and how we get the economy up and running. So if you could write the government's business recovery plan, or you could influence them to do something that would just make the difference to you and your business, what would that look like, Caroline?
I think for me, Alison, it's the clarity of knowing what support's out there. So, you know, I got sent an email the other day, and there was 42 potential funding sources that takes probably 3 days to go through, and you realise actually you're not eligible for any of them. And this is, you know, it's uncharted waters, isn't it, for everyone? But if it was me, you know, it's, you know, Whitty gets grief, but he's so clear, you know. It was like, if you've packed your bags, unpack them. You're not traveling. That's it. To me, that's what clarity, that's what clear messaging is all about. It's not the kind of yes and ayes and maybes and no's. And so I think, you know, it would be about clarity of message that business is really important. This is how we're going to support you. Here's all the things that are available to support you to get in one place to go for that. Because at the moment, there's so many different places to go. It's really tough. It's really time consuming. And, you know, you've got the business of survival right now, as well as growth. So I think that's what I would do, is create real clarity of communication and have a one-stop shop for all the support that's out there.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm not going to be popular in a business group, am I? But I totally believe in universal basic income. I think that we've reached a stage where the only way to keep our economy going is to take away the uncertainty of how much money is in my pocket and what's happening. I rely on people's disposable income to have a cleaner, to come in for a coffee, to order tapas, whatever. I think that if universal basic income had been decided at the start of this pandemic, and I don't know if it'd be forever, just at the start of this, then we would have had a lot of self-employed people who have fallen through the gaps, not fallen through the gaps. And we would have had a backup. Like, I wouldn't have been going into my shop thinking, this week we've got to make this much. And I'm unique because I got into that myself, but there's a lot of business owners in hospitality who never got into that themselves, who never, you know, that they never saw that coming. The other thing I think totally is, I'm really tired of these different tiers of funding, and I'm really tired of, if you're this, apply for this, much like Caroline's saying. I personally think if you are creating jobs and protecting jobs, even if that's your own job, then you're valuable. And the cost of even my cleaning company giving up, the cost of all those people being unemployed, not to mention the mental health cost of that, is way too high to risk that. I don't think the government's place, like, don't shoot me, is to pay directors' wages. If you've reached a good director's wage, I think that's a risk that you have to go with if you're self-employed. That's something you're aware of. But I think that I'm a director of the DCBN, which is a domestic cleaning industry thing, and I've listened to women who have built good businesses, who have done everything right, say, like, the domestic cleaning industry is one of the ones that's been closed twice by the strategic framework and never had any funding, and they're crying because they've spent 5-6 years dedicating their life to building this business, and they're having to stop through no fault of their own. And that's where I really feel like that's a bit rubbish. But I think, for me, universal basic income, clear strategy on funding and grants, and I would have rather that was all nations rather than hearing what's announced in England and thinking that I'm going to get that and then I'm not going to get that. And the other thing I think is, like, we maybe should have paused Brexit, quite frankly, because the cost of importing coffee machines going through the roof for ingredients is another thing that I don't need right now. But I don't always think that government's run by people who have built a grassroots business. I think it's often run by people who are in government, and being a civil servant, that was my original job. I know full well that the decisions that are made are not always the decisions that are going to work in real life. Sorry, ranted.
All right, Hayley.
I agree with a lot of what Kelly's saying. I think with the government, there's a lot of excuses. In fact, not just the government, a lot of businesses, services, things that impact our business where the excuse it's unprecedented is used. But yeah, it's unprecedented, but we still have to continue. And if you've got your own business, you're still doing it. It's unprecedented, but I can't use that as an excuse. That doesn't pay the wages for my staff or my rent or my rates. I'm one of those people that fell through the gaps in terms of support, and I'm not eligible for anything, nothing at all. And a lot of my staff, we took them on at the start of lockdown, so they would have been eligible for nothing at all, no furlough. But I see the impact on the little businesses, the little pubs here in Morningfieth and Carnoustie, still paying 10% of the wages on furlough with no income coming in. So furlough's great, but not for employers. It's for employees. That's nothing for the employers that fall through those gaps. So I think the approach I'd like to see, or would have preferred the government to have done, is maybe a stop approach to some things and start to others. I think that they should stop wasting money on the marketing, promotion and administration of schemes that are flitting away. They're here one minute, gone the next. Kickstarter, what's happening with that? And it's like so much money, putting big nice signs on buildings. This is a COVID testing centre. Wow, how many £1,000 gets wasted on shit like that? I'm sorry, but that money would be better put to something else, a pot that maybe local councils could give out. I don't know. I don't know the administration of it. I'm not that clever, but I would like to see them spending less time on track and trace and more on vaccinating people, not just from the kind of like older age group and vulnerable, but from the bottom up. If the super spreaders are the young people, like when you're in school and you get your TB and your rubella and all your jags, why not do it from both ends? I would love to see that, and then we can kind of meet in the middle. But at the moment it's too slow. It's not happening, and you're talking like July before things are going to open again, and then even then we're coming to the end of the year by then, and it's going to start all over again like any other flu. So yeah, I think it's just stop wasting money on some things and refocus and be a bit more practical and pragmatic and apply things in a different way. I don't know. I'd hate to be a politician.
Well, I couldn't agree with that last statement more, and I frequently say that I couldn't do it. That the people that are better at that than me that do that and have to make those decisions. But that was really, really, really interesting. It's just been a fab hour and a half, learning about you, getting the chance to ask you questions. I know you guys all think you've got the best job, but you absolutely do not. I have got the best job. I get to sit here and just ask questions and just listen. And we finished with, I think something that just nails everything I think that you ladies were all saying, which is just remember to ask. So, you've given us something to take straight to government. We've got some really clear asks on that, which I'm very grateful to you for kind of taking the time on the hoof to share, because the best ideas just come to you off the hoof, don't they? You talked about winging it, and it's been super interesting. A massive thank you to Caroline, to Kelly and to Hayley for coming on. Thank you to Sarah for getting us all organised, and to every single one of you that paused the homeschooling, had your breakfast early, hasn't had your breakfast early, and is like gnawing your fingers. Hayley and her team have got a million amazing pies to go off and cook, never mind the brilliant seafood and other things they do. It's Wednesday, and that's community meals for the team that Kelly's got behind her on a Wednesday evening, and Caroline's just got to go and do a lot of social good. And I've just had a brilliant time with you all this morning. I talked about our resilience event next week. Sarah will also send you a survey. Would love to know what you've liked, disliked, what you'd like to help us do to improve our sessions, and any other speakers that you could think of that you're going, oh, I'd love to hear them talk about the things that they do. Please, please, please just give us any kind of feedback. We really appreciate it, and we just appreciate you coming on, being you. So thank you so much to those of you that spoke and engaged, and lots of stuff going on in the chat. It's been brilliant. Enjoy the rest of Hump Day, whatever you're doing. Thanks, folks. See you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.